Welcome to another DorkLair collecting video. Today I am going to break down the Mythic Legions Reign of the Beasts action figure wave from Four Horsemen Studios. This is a 7-figure wave. They were merciful on our wallets this time, knowing that Dragon is coming. This pre-order will end on December 29th, however, which is a little quicker than the typical G-Con pre-order wave. So just be aware of that. This video is going up probably around December 14th, 15th. So that gives you about 2 weeks from the start of this video being published. The retail pre-order will begin the very next day on Monday, December 30th. And then, between now and then, you'll probably want to determine whether you want to go direct pre-order or retail pre-order. At the end of this video, I will break down some of the pros and cons, or the, this versus that kind of situation with direct versus retail pre-order. Anyway, this wave has what I consider sort of 3 tiers of figures. Starting off at the top here, we have standard figures. These are your usual figures that at retail are $50. The direct price is $40. And then the next up, we have the row of 3 deluxe figures. Those are still the same kind of body. They're 1.0 and 2.0 6 to 7 inch figures, but they are more deluxe and have more features and more accessories and more things. And so they are a little bit more expensive. And then finally, we have the large figures, 1 brute scale figure and 1 ogre scale figure in Laodicea himself. And so this wave introduced the final 2 great beasts, Basilia and Laodicea, and so they're very welcome. And I do know that they teased that they are working on the reissues, or version 2s, I should say, of the other 2 that are hard to find now. That would be Xylona and Etheron. So those will be coming around probably next year or something like that. Getting into these standard figures, we have 2 of these. The first one is Windaji the Cackler. The character type is Null, and it is essentially a werewolf style hyena character. And this one is on what they're calling the new 3.0 body, though it will have some compatibility with the 1.0, and it will kind of be around that same size range as well, in terms of like the silhouette and the bulk are going to kind of match up pretty well with the 1.0 figures. And then the other one is the Pride of Leandor. Pretty straightforward legionary. It's kind of cool. They're telling this story that takes place in the ancient history of Mythos, and then so it's cool that you're seeing more like classical armor, Roman armor, as translated into our world. So it's kind of like, it's older, it's more ancient, the same way our medieval armor is newer than the older, more ancient Roman armor, and for our standards on planet Earth, right? So these are both $40 direct when you pre-order during the current sale. Again, that ends December 29th. If you wait and you want to pre-order them instead from a retailer, or if you want to get them from a convention, like a Four Horsemen show, then it's going to be $50. And that's a new change. They used to sell the figures for cheaper at conventions, but they're establishing a baseline retail price so that a couple things. One, I think it does favors for the retailers, and it encourages people to equate picking it up at the show with picking it up from a retailer. It also reestablishes the great value that there is with a pre-order. Because a lot of people were just waiting and saying, hey, I'm not going to pick this up. I'll just wait until I see him at the show. But this kind of re-incentivizes going with the direct pre-order. So $40 direct, $50 retail on these. And here's a look at them from the back, and all their accessories. They've just been loading more and more, loading up characters with just like a ton of accessories, alternate heads, alternate hand, multiple weapons, and so on. And specifically Windaji, this is, like I said, the 3.0 body. Jeremy and Joe from Four Horsemen had a live stream on Wednesday, December 11th on the Mythic Customs channel. Mythic Conversations is the show. I think it's episode 204. That one, they went through a lot of stuff, and I stole some pictures from them, and I included them here. So the first one is that butterfly joint. That's a new piece of articulation for Mythic Legions. This is definitely the first time we're seeing a butterfly joint with Mythic Legions. It's a bit of an experiment, I believe, because, they're going to have to like go through the engineering process and the factory process and figure out like how compatible things are going to be. Their goal is that like you could just take an arm from another figure, like maybe take an armored arm just straight off of a knight or something and just pop it right into that butterfly joint. So hopefully those things all like come about, but obviously there's a lot of production work to do to try to figure out what's going to be what. I do know that they said they're going to try to make a lot of stuff still compatible. Like, for example, on the arms, they are saying that these forearm pieces are going to be just pretty much the same as you would have on a regular figure. So it's like the from the shoulder to the forearm is going to be, a new setup, a new construction, but from the shoulder into the torso, and then from the top of the forearm into the bracers or wraps or whatever you're going to have on a character, like those will still be compatible. So these wraps will be something that you can pop and swap and use for other characters. They're sort of elongated. And so if you wanted to take these furry arms and make them shorter, you could just take one of the regular, like maybe take the wraps off of Varg, or take a regular forearm bracer piece off any figure and just make it a shorter arm piece to have that furry arm set up with a shorter look. Legs are a very similar situation where you have that double jointed knee, and you're going to have to kind of work around that in terms of compatibility, but you'd have like the wraps at the bottom that are going to be compatible with other figures that have that same kind of construction. And so there will be some cross compatibility. And here's a look at without the big neck piece on there, and they put the Monkey King head, and honestly, this looks freaking incredible. So that's going to be like an extra one I'm going to get just for that, just for like doing Monkey King swaps right there. And then getting into the Pride of Leandor, this figure is also a 3.0 body. It doesn't have the upper torso diaphragm cut. It also doesn't have the shoulder butterfly joints, but it does have the double knees. It does have the double elbows. One difference is that the forearm is an overlay piece. So that is something that slides over a bare forearm. And so you could take that one and put it on, probably, I'm assuming you could put it on like the Gaspar figure or the Anubis figure or any of those figures that we're now starting to see with the bare forearm. And then this one also has those, the same kind of lower leg setup where you have the under the knee, top of the calf, and then going into a second piece that's down at the, at the below the calf, and that will also be compatible. So, like, for example, if you look at Kai Pacha and if you look at Novi and Lean, those two have the same kind of setup, but previously they weren't really compatible with anything else, right? Because all of the other figures go straight from the knee down. But now we're going to have those boots from Kai Pacha, those boots from Novi and Lean, if you're into Cosmic, plus the boots from both of these characters, or at least the calf, the lower leg part from both of these Reign of the Beasts characters. And so now you're introducing a second and third set of legs that are compatible with those kinds of boots, and then you now have 4 different types of boots with it. So this like completely like blows out the possibilities, and you suddenly just have a ton of different combinations. You could have those space boots on the furry guy. You could have the bare legs with the sort of pirate boots. You could mix and match and have a lot of different possibilities. Again, assuming it's all compatible, which I know is their goal. It's just a matter of whether they can get it done once they're engineering in the factory. So that's kind of like my thoughts on those 2 standard figures. There's definitely going to be some cool popping and swapping going on. I mean, and that's just a couple pieces. There's a lot of other stuff. You're always going to be able to swap the shoulder pauldrons. You're going to be able to swap the feet, the hands, right, the torsos and stuff like that, skirt pieces and so on. But in terms of like interesting new things, I think specifically those lower legs are going to be a lot of fun because it's kind of like expanding pretty well what you can do with these figures that were previously somewhat limited, or at least like, you know, the stuff that's on pre-order and what we suspected would be kind of limited. Okay, getting into the deluxe figures, we have two snakes. The first one is Basilia herself, the great beast. And then the second one is the Serpent Spire Royal Guard. They have a lot of similarities with that snake tail and the classic upper bodies. But the big difference is that Basilia's top half is 2.0, slimmer, like a lot of the elves and goblins and things. And then the Serpent Spire Royal Guard is a 1.0. So if you've been familiar with the Ninian Enforcer, or what is it, the Ninian Infantry, then you'll kind of like recognize that upper half. Although they have added to it a upper torso cut. So those are the two snakes, and then the other deluxe figure is Araya the Talon Bearer, a sort of dragon worshiper in a age and a realm where dragons theoretically don't exist, though we find out they do. So we have her with her talon, dragon talon staff and her little mini dragon, which is, I guess in lore, it's a familiar that is like in the appearance of a dragon. Is not technically a dragon. But it's a spirit or a demon or something. But yeah, Araya is a pretty standard 2.0 figure with a lot of the new parts from the waves that are still in production. And as far as prices go, the two snakes direct pre-order are $45, and the retail price of the two snakes will be $55, so a $10 increase on that retail price, which again will include convention prices. And then we have $50 for Araya. She obviously comes with a little mini dragon that's probably quite a accessory piece there that adds some price. $50 direct, and then $60 retail and conventions. And so kind of taking a look at the snakes, here they are from the front and then again from the back. And then here we have the accessories for the snakes, and the Royal Guard looks like it comes with a lot more, but when you kind of factor in those wings that come with Basilia, they definitely balance out, and it almost feels like Basilia maybe is like a little bit more of a deluxe figure when you factor those wings in. For the Royal Guard, I wanted to point out again that this will have that cut that we started. I think they first introduced it in the Thraxians in Cosmic Legions, and so we're getting a diaphragm cut on this, which is awesome. And also Windaji has the diaphragm cut, so starting to see that more and more with these figures, which is a very welcome thing. I loved it when I got that Arakagor Scourge, like that dragon body in hand, and got to experience having that upper torso cut on a bigger, chunkier figure. They've had it on the 2.0 figures since the start of those, but they didn't have the waist ball joint. That was just a swivel. So now you're having a ball joint and an upper torso cut, which is going to really change the game in terms of posing for these guys. And of course, that upper torso, you'll be able to pop that off and put it on a pair of armored legs and totally make another character with legs if you want. And same thing with the Basilia figure. And then moving on to Araya, couple looks at her, and then her accessory set, and the dragon looks awesome, very cool, like an Eastern type of dragon over here. And I just wanted to also add for her from that same pop and swap video from Jeremy and Joe, they posted this picture of her without the cloth goods, which gives you a good sense of what you're getting. And what you're getting is essentially the same body, different torso, but like you're getting the same limbs and the same kind of like build as the Ghost of Christmas Past and the Bastet figure. So it's a great body, and it's pretty new, and it moves really well, and it's just got a really great shape to it. A little more robust than those original 2.0 figures. Then getting into the large scale figures, we have the brute scale Gehenna the Ifrit, a kind of variant on the Djinn that came out in the previous wave, in the Poxus wave, Kalazir. But this time they introduced a smoke piece for the bottom. Of course, there's a new sword and a new head sculpt and all this stuff. But you know, it's kind of riffing on the same genie type character with the Ifrit here. And then we have the ogre scale Leodicius, which is to me the star of the show. This figure is amazing. It's just so detailed. It's so big. This thing is crazy. I love it so much. Direct pre-order for Gehenna, the brute scale, is $55. And then the retail and convention price for Gehenna is $75. Direct price for Leodicius is $80. Retail price $100. Here's a look at them from the back. And then a look at their accessories. A lot of cool stuff here. That hammer is massive. It's humongous. It makes the one that came with Atlas look tiny. It's hilarious. Really cool. And then you got multiple expressions for Leodicius, which is awesome. You have a roaring and a snarling and a serious face, or kind face even. And then as far as Gehenna goes, he also comes with legs, so you can set him up exactly how Kalazir is set up and like go with that look right there, which is super cool that they're including both options there. Leodicius has some additional articulation that previous ogre scale figures did not. So they are adding some articulation there. Butterfly joints is pretty awesome. That's one of those places where the range can be very limited on those ogre scale figures. So that's a welcome addition there. And then we did have that diaphragm cut on the dragons, but we haven't seen that on any of the other ones. Like the knights don't have it. The ogres, like the bear torso doesn't have it. The bear, like, non-furry torso, whatever. So that's really cool that this guy is getting it as well. Theoretically, you could potentially swap that lower torso piece with the dragon lower torso, though you're going to get caught up with the butterfly joint that has the fur on it is going to kind of mix things up a little bit there. You do have the overlay still with the gauntlets, so those will be something that you can like pop and swap and mix and match on those forearm bracer things. That piece alone, the sculpture is incredible if you kind of look close some of the photos. And there's a look at the arm, which includes a bicep swivel. So some of the other ones like the Pride of Leandor and Windaji, I believe, they're getting bicep swivels, and now the ogre scale figure is getting a bicep swivel as well. So that is awesome. All right, and so that is your 7 figures. The total, if you add up all those prices on the direct pre-order price, the total is $355. Or if you want to just buy one item, one SKU, it's $320 for the all-in. And then if you translate that and add up all of the retail individual prices, that comes to $445. So it's a substantial savings. It's $125 saving if you buy the all-in direct. But there are some pros and some cons if you kind of go back and forth between direct and retail. So I'll just kind of do the same thing I've done on these videos in the past, which is just share some of those differences. First one, obviously, the price, you're going to have a better price if you order direct. $320 all in versus $445 all in retail convention. Once you get into like, if you're just buying one single figure and you start factoring in like shipping and stuff, it might not be as stark a difference, and it might not even be a difference at all. But if you're going to do all in, it makes much more sense to go direct. And obviously, if you're outside of the United States, that's just factors that I can't even really like understand, because the shipping could be crazy. Like it could be more expensive to order direct theoretically if the shipping is really high, and then you have somebody like, importing it to their local stores or whatever, right? Like if there's imports happening and you can buy it from a store that's in Europe or something, that might be a little bit different. So International, it's kind of tough to compare for me. One advantage for retail is that you get to pay later at most stores, or at least you can do like a small deposit and then pay later. Sometimes you don't have to put a deposit at all and you just pay all of it later. So that's definitely an advantage for retail. I like to just get the money done and like pre-order it, and it comes a year and a half later, sometimes 2 years later. And it's like, okay, I don't even have to worry about it. It's like it's already paid for. It's been paid for. It just shows up. But I know there's a lot of people out there who cannot stomach having their money held up for 2 years on a pre-order, and this is your option. Just go retail. You don't have to pay. You can pay later. And then the other advantage oftentimes for retail is that they often have free or like a flat like $5 shipping, whereas for these orders with Four Horsemen, because there's such a variance, they can't do a flat rate. So it's going to be a calculated shipping based on how big. And, sometimes those shipping rates can get up there, especially if you're ordering from the West Coast. If you're ordering from California or the Pacific Northwest or something, it can get pretty expensive for shipping. So another advantage to retail, though, oftentimes if you're ordering a large number of figures, it's going to be offset by that big savings from the direct to retail price differences. Though you might not have to ship it at all if you wait, because you could potentially score them at a convention. However, they did say they're ordering fewer and fewer extras for conventions. So we might start seeing sellouts in the future. I know collecting in general, the last couple of years, it's been like a flood, and then there's been a lot of overstock. So I think a lot of companies are dialing back. A lot of retailers are dialing back how many extras they buy. The final one is when you order direct, and this is an advantage for direct, is you tend to get them shipped earlier. So usually what Four Horsemen will do is they will set a street date for retailers, and that street date is when they expect to have the last of the direct pre-orders shipped out. So be aware, if you order retail, you're going to see a lot of people with these in hand posting photos and all that stuff, and you're going to be kind of sitting there waiting for them to ship. And some actually might not even be on the street date. It might be a week or two later. So just be aware that if you go retail, you're going to get them typically later. 9 out of 10 times, you're going to get them later. And that'll do it for my video. Let me know if you have any more questions. Throw them in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Until next time, may the force be with you.